The Blackwood Asylum, a true nightmare returns. The Blackwood Asylum had been closed for nearly 40 years, sealed after the mysterious disappearance of every patient and staff member inside. Locals said it wasn't haunted, it was hungry. They avoided the forest road that led there, especially at night when lights were seen moving behind broken windows. But in 2023, a small film crew from New York arrived to shoot a documentary titled Echoes of the Forgotten. Their plan was simple: spend one night inside the asylum, record everything, and leave before sunrise. It was supposed to be easy. The team, Ryan the director, Mia the sound engineer, Lucas the cameraman, and Emma the journalist, entered the building just before dusk. The air was thick with dust and something sweet, like decaying flowers. The front door shut behind them with a hollow slam, though none of them had touched it. "Old hinges," Ryan said, pretending to laugh, but his voice trembled. They set up their cameras in the main hallway. Peeling paint hung like skin, and long corridors stretched into blackness. Faint echoes whispered from somewhere deep inside. Maybe the wind, maybe not. Emma began reading from old medical records she found in a drawer. Patient 42, female, 16, diagnosis, possession, treatment, isolation. Her voice caught on the last word. Possession? Lucas laughed nervously. That's just old superstition. At midnight, the power from their generator flickered. The air grew colder, and the sound recorder picked up something strange, faint murmurs that weren't theirs. "Help me." The voice was soft, broken, but clear. Mia froze. Did anyone just say that? No one answered. Then, from the far end of the hall, a door creaked open. They followed the sound into Ward C, the isolation wing. The smell of iron was strong, like blood that never dried. Inside, dozens of wheelchairs were arranged in a perfect circle. "We didn't do this," Ryan whispered. Suddenly, one of the chairs rolled forward on its own. The camera captured everything. Mia screamed, "Let's leave!" But when they turned to run, the hallway behind them was gone, replaced by another corridor they hadn't seen before. They ran until they reached the operating theater. Metal tables stood under cracked lights, and old restraints hung like vines. The air felt alive. Emma looked at the wall. Someone had written words in dried blood. "She never left." The lights went out. In the darkness, a child's laughter echoed. The camera light came back on, and in that beam, behind Emma, stood a girl in a hospital gown, head tilted, eyes completely white. Lucas dropped the camera. "Jesus!" The girl whispered, "Don't wake her." And then she vanished. The ground shook, lights burst, and a deafening alarm began to scream. Doors slammed, one after another, until the sound became unbearable. The team ran toward the exit, but when they reached the front door, it was bricked shut. "It wasn't like this before," Ryan shouted. Mia turned, shaking. "It's the asylum. It doesn't let them go." The whispers grew louder, hundreds of voices now, crying, laughing, screaming all at once. Shadows stretched across the walls like moving veins. The camera caught a figure in the distance, a tall woman in a nurse's uniform, face hidden by a surgical mask. She held a scalpel dripping black liquid. Slowly, she raised her head. Her mouth wasn't sewn shut anymore. It was open, impossibly wide, and from it came the sound of all the voices at once. Emma fell to her knees, covering her ears. "Make it stop, please!" But the woman stepped forward, whispering, "You woke me." The footage ends there. 2 months later, police found the camera buried in the rubble of the old asylum. No bodies were recovered. On the tape, the final minute shows the front gate of Blackwood standing open, and a woman walking out, barefoot, dragging a scalpel across the ground, humming softly. Locals still hear her song when the wind passes through the forest at night. They say the asylum is still there, not in the real world, but in the echoes of those who entered and never came back. And sometimes, if you drive down the Blackwood Road after midnight, your radio starts picking up a faint transmission, a girl's voice whispering through the static. A week after the police found the ruined camera near the gates of Blackwood Asylum, the investigation was quietly shut down. The files were sealed, the footage labeled classified. But curiosity is a dangerous thing, and when forensic psychologist Dr. Eleanor Shaw received an anonymous email containing a fragment of that video, she couldn't look away. The clip showed the woman in the nurse's uniform walking into the fog, dragging her scalpel, humming that same eerie tune. Eleanor thought it was a hoax, until the humming began in her apartment 3 nights later. Sleep abandoned her. Every night, exactly at 3:07 a.m., she heard footsteps pacing just beyond her door. The neighbors claimed they heard nothing. On the 5th night, her mirror fogged from the inside. In its center, words appeared. "Come back to the ward." She tried to record it, but the phone died the moment she pressed record. That same morning, she received a package, an old key marked Ward C Isolation. There was no sender's name. Against all reason, Eleanor drove to Blackwood Forest that night. The road was overgrown, her headlights barely cutting through the mist. When she reached the asylum, the main gate stood wide open as if expecting her. Inside, the walls pulsed faintly like something alive beneath the plaster. Her flashlight flickered. From the end of the hall, a woman's voice whispered softly, "Doctor, they're waiting for you." Eleanor followed the sound into Ward C. Every door was open, and each room had messages carved into the walls. "She's awake. Don't let her see you breathe." She reached the same operating theater from the video. The air was freezing, and her breath came out in thick clouds. On the floor lay a scalpel, still wet with something black. She picked it up, and the lights above flickered violently. In their strobe, she saw fleeting images. The missing crew, standing motionless, faces pale, eyes sewn shut. Behind them stood the nurse, smiling. Eleanor stumbled backward, whispering, "This isn't real." The nurse tilted her head. "Real enough to bleed?" she said softly. Suddenly, the lights went out. Hands, cold, wet, trembling, grabbed Eleanor from behind. She screamed, but the sound was swallowed by darkness. The nurse's voice drifted through the hall. "They always come back to help. You came to listen, didn't you, doctor?" When Eleanor's flashlight came on again, she was in a different room. Small, windowless, and lined with padded walls. She realized where she was. A patient cell. On the opposite wall, written in blood, were the words, "You can't cure what isn't sick." Her watch said 3:07 a.m. The humming began again. Soft, slow, and right behind her ear. She turned around, nothing. Then, in the reflection of the cell's glass door, she saw the nurse standing behind her, smiling. Eleanor tried to run, but the door wouldn't move. The nurse leaned closer, her mask slipping just enough to reveal a mouth full of writhing black tongues. "Breathe, doctor. Let her in." The next morning, a hiker found Eleanor's car parked near the asylum gate, the engine cold, her notebook open on the passenger seat. The last page read only one line. She never left the ward. 2 nights later, Blackwood Asylum lit up again, for the first time in 40 years. Windows glowed faintly from within. A new silhouette stood at the entrance, a woman in a lab coat holding a scalpel, humming softly. Now, locals say there are 2 voices in the forest, one humming, one whispering. And if you ever hear both at once, it means you're standing at the gate. The camera from the first crew still plays by itself every full moon. The screen flickers, the tape loops endlessly. The nurse walks past the lens, stops, looks straight into it, and says,